I'd like to start the webinar with the introduction from Johan from MRF.
Morning, everyone. First of all, thank you all for making the time to join this webinar. Compliments of the season and a wonderful 2021 to everyone, although albeit under a cloud of COVID and lots of uncertainty. We do hope that you all have a great and prosperous year. Just very short introduction from my side before I hand back to the Africa Scope team. And it's just to give some context to this webinar and explain, what this is all about and where we're heading to with this. First of all, the MRF was born out of the demise of SARF. As you all know, SARF came to an end around 2015, 2016. Its mandate shifted from being a kind of industry body to being a body more focused on specifically the needs and requirements of marketers and advertisers. And from that mandate, one of its first priorities was to replace the gap that was left with the demise of AMPS. And MAPS is that product. It's been refreshed, it's been cleaned up a bit, and we started field work with that right in the midst of the COVID lockdown around July last year, when the restriction levels were reduced and we were able to go into field with the research. This webinar today is based on the first quarter's worth of data of that field work. So it's a smallish sample, it's preliminary. This is to give you kind of a preliminary view. We're very excited with this partnership that we've entered into with Africa Scope, because we think this kind of data analysis and insight gives you a great level of analysis capability, not only from a consumer insights point of view, but also from a business intelligence point of view. When we add more data, this experience should only become richer and more valuable to organizations out there. So I think, that's it from me. Thank you again for joining, and I'm going to hand back to Bob for them to start us off for their presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Johan. And we at Africa Scope are really proud to be associated with MRF on this project. As most of you know, the previous AMP survey could not be mapped because of the sample design. That has all changed with the map sample design, because it allows us now to use area-based sampling, which we can then in turn map the data, model the data, and map the data. As a partner to MRF, we will be responsible for the provision of survey data in a GIS format. We use our technical skills that we've developed over the years, particularly under the leadership of our GIS specialist, Craig Schwabi. Julianne will also be applying her skills and experience to assist clients with the development of their brand strategies using the GIS data, particularly the MAPS data. Just talking about Julianne. Julianne is a consumer insights specialist focusing on big data. Her passion is turning numbers into strategy, and since joining the Africa Scope team, she's been specializing in GIS data. Julianne is passionate about consulting with clients and achieving their strategic brand objectives. Julianne can now work with the MAPS data and other Africa Scope datasets to enhance client strategies. And I'll now hand over to Julianne to take us through her presentation.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today really is a big day for us to introduce GeoMAPS to the industry. It's a project we've been working on in close collaboration with Marie and then later Johan for about 3 years. So we really, really are proud to be the GIS partners to such an important industry survey. So let's get into what GeoMAPS is all about. So GeoMAPS, the MAPS innovation of GeoMAPS is essentially the next level of analysis. It was an innovation that the MRF promised the industry, and Africa Scope is proud to be the GIS partner. So we really are living in a world where understanding the consumer and their location is critical to strategic decision making. So what is GeoMAPS? GeoMAPS essentially places data into a geographic context using location to add a visual dimension to consumer data, empowering you to visually pick up on trends and patterns at a neighborhood level. So I will be showing you some actual examples of this later in the presentation, but this really is a huge innovation, as in the past, surveys like AMPS and other big data sets out there have only allowed marketers and strategists to drill down to municipality level. And that's obviously also sample size dependent. So what are the benefits of GeoMAPS? profile your consumer segments in detail, find and target new customers, and maximize your ROI and increase market share. So just drilling a little bit further down into this and giving some more detail on why we say this. GeoMAPS will allow marketers to dig deeper, see a bigger picture, grow market share, and make strategic decisions faster with more accuracy through a detailed view of consumers down to neighborhood level or suburb level. The lowest spatial level that we do go down to is an EA level, but it's very doubtful that any strategist will be working with an EA. But the beauty of GeoMAPS is you can combine very specific EAs to formulate your own area of interest. To profile your consumer segments in detail, so adding a geographic approach to segmenting ensures relevant messages are targeted to the right audience in the right areas using the right media. Whereas in the past, the big surveys go down to a much higher level, spatial level, so that previously wasn't possible. Existing customers already know their preferred brand, so finding and targeting new consumers. So your existing customers already know what their preferred brand is. The challenge is to better understand existing consumers to successfully target new consumers with similar profiles, interests, needs, and buying behaviors within the same area. So maximizing your marketing ROI and increasing market share by more accurately understanding consumers at a neighborhood or suburb level, ROI can be maximized through marketing spend in the most profitable geographic areas, thus achieving increased market share. So a granular view of down to suburb level, as I said, hasn't been able to be achieved in the past, but I will show you in a few minutes visually how you can see where these opportunities exist. So a little bit of technical background. So this really is Craig's area of speciality. So I am going to skim through this, and if there is any questions, then Craig is on standby to answer any questions if you have any technical questions. So GeoMAPS is being developed using two techniques created by Africascope, namely circle point thematic and small area estimation. So circle point thematic is a qualitative method to rapidly map and view the results of a survey data for quality control and research purposes. So that's how we use circle point thematics in the beginning, where we're looking at sample and quality control. It gives you a very, very quick overview if there are any quality control issues in your data. Looking over to the right, this is a classic zoomed in example of a circle point thematic, where the center of each circle shows where the interviews were conducted. Each point in a circle represents a randomly selected respondent, and the color of each point indicates the answer given by the respondent. So the question could, for example, be, do you own a cell phone? The red would indicate no, the green would indicate yes. This could be true for any brand question, such as do you drink Nescafe coffee, for instance, thus allowing marketers to get a visual view of the competitive landscape as per brand or category penetration down to a suburb level. Small area estimation. So this is a quantitative method to accurately map survey data to local areas. Just drilling a little bit deeper, and this is getting quite technical. So if the technical people are out there, you'll enjoy this slide. If it's mostly the marketers and the strategists out there, if you have any questions about this and you need to know more, as I can certainly help with that. So if you have a look at this inset to the right, the color-coded areas are those where areas that were surveyed. Each color-coded area has multiple weighted value associated with it from the survey. Secondary data sets, in this case updated 2020 demographics, contained in the areas are linked to the survey data, and then a statistical relationship is created between the secondary and survey data set in color-coded areas. And then machine learning and artificial neural networks are used to generate the data for all local areas. And that is it from a technical perspective. Now we are going to get to some of the fun stuff. But before we do that, I want to just show a GIS view of the national sample and some demographic profiling. So bear in mind, this is the national sample distribution of cycle 1 of wave 1. So MAPS will be conducting 20,004 interviews using area-based national sample. There are 2 waves per year, wave 1 and wave 2. Each wave is made up of successive 6 calendar months, and the first wave, 2020, will run from July to December. The map inset to the right indicates a complete cycle distribution for cycle 1 of wave 1. So it's a sample of 5,000, approximately 830 EAs. But what you can see is this is just a great map to see exactly what the sample distribution is like thus far from a MAPS perspective. Looking at some demographic profiling. I focused specifically in on the northern suburbs of Johannesburg for this presentation, specifically looking at the areas like Florida, Alexandra, and then these areas in the middle, which are typically your sort of higher and mixed income household. Right, so what we see from a Florida perspective, of all the suburbs shown here, Florida has the highest racial integration with representation of all 4 race groups. Moving over slightly to the right, Hyde Park, Victory Park, Begari, Cresta, Randburg, Rand Park are predominantly white areas with some coloured representation, and Alexandra Township to the right is predictably black. Right, if we move over to age, again, great visual representation of what the age landscape or the landscape looks like from an age perspective. So interestingly, Florida has the highest prevalence of ages 15 to 25, indicating a slightly older family structure in the suburb. So typically teenagers and young adults still living at home. In Victory Park, Montgomery Park and Randburg have a middle-age profile indicating potentially that the younger up-and-coming families are dominating this area. And then Alexandra shows a spread of the age group, and this could possibly indicate that there's very little movement out of the family community area. As we know, the townships are very, very community-based. Looking at income, so Florida is predominantly middle-class income suburb. If one refers back to the previous slide, it's clear that the middle income is spread across all the race groups. Hyde Park, Victory Park, Begari are predictably high-income households. Suburbs to the west have mixed income profile. And then Alexandra has an interesting income profile where townships have historically been low per capita income areas, but we're starting to see, particularly with the green and the darker green dots, that there is a growing number of high income households in the township area. So this really indicates the importance of better understanding the South African township market. And it is possible in the GeoMAPS environment to ring fence all South African townships and analyze the profile of each township individually. And within that township environment, there's all sorts of information that you can gather, and we then layer the GeoMAPS information on top of that. Moving over to really bringing the data to life. So we've looked at the demographics. Now we want to look into some categories. So I've chosen a couple of categories to drill down into the session. That being telecoms, medical aid, stokvels, food retail, and then we have a quick look at radio, in this case 702. But it's important to know that all categories and brands can and will be geocoded. So looking at mobile networks, if we look at Florida, we can see a very, very clear MTN dominance there. Vodacom's also got a pretty strong hold in that area. If we look over to Hyde Park, Randburg, it is very, very dominated by Vodacom. And if we have a look at the Alexandra area, Vodacom and MTN appear to be strong in this area, but there is very good presence of the other networks. So the power of GeoMAPS is the ability to visually see brand and category consumption down to the smallest spatial level. So this is powerful data for brand planning and strategy and understanding the competitive landscape. Right, so if we have a look at medical aid, I love this slide because it really gives you such a simple view of where are the growth and opportunity areas. So again, the green dots are yes, I have a medical aid, and the red dots are no, I don't have a medical aid. So if we start breaking it down to an area, we know that Florida is typically a middle per capita suburb, again with a very high prevalence of age 18 to 25. So possibly, teenagers obviously, won't have their own medical aid, but the younger generation purchased or got into their own medical aids. But we're seeing here that there's very low penetration of medical aid in this area. Potentially, affordability might be a factor. However, from an opportunity perspective, there might be opportunity here to use lower priced medical aid schemes or policies in this area. Moving over to the middle area, Hyde Park, Crest and Randburg are saturated. So potentially brand switching campaign opportunities can be considered. And new market opportunities definitely exist in Victory Park, Begari and the Randburg areas, where you see there is quite a few prevalence of, no, I don't have medical aid. Then moving over to Alexandra, and just thinking back to the mixed income profiles of Alexandra and looking at the penetration of people engaging in this category, it's clear that there is growth opportunities that exist in this area. as medical aid penetration is quite low. Also thinking back to the income of people living in that area becoming high income earners. Looking at stockfell penetration, so this was also a very interesting slide. So stockfells have historically been a mechanism that the Black population used for saving. It started with the spirit of Ubuntu, where we all help each other. Of late, more mainstream insurers have started offering stockfell products. But the insert to the right shows that stockfells are not well supported in this particular area of Johannesburg. However, in the spirit of Ubuntu growth and opportunities, particularly in COVID times, you never know, there may exist some opportunity for growth in the stockfell market. Looking at food retail, so this is a great slide that demonstrates data layering. So it specifically focuses on shoppers who do or do not do their bulk shopping only at Pick n Pay. So we're only focusing on the Pick n Pay brand in this particular slide. So the blue icons that you see on the map, those represent the point location of all the Pick n Pay stores in this particular area. And as I say, this is a great example of how secondary data can be integrated into the GeoMAPS environment. We can also obviously layer all of the other retail brands, but for the purposes of keeping the slide simple, we have chosen just to look at Pick n Pay. So it really just inside gives you a very interesting view on consumers shop for groceries. So the green is yes, I do bulk shopping at Pick n Pay, and the red is no, I don't do bulk shopping at Pick n Pay. And the black dots are I don't do bulk shopping. So that starts presenting quite an interesting story. So residents of Alexandra and Cresta are more likely to engage in bulk shopping at Pick n Pay. And then thinking back to the income maps of Florida and Hyde Park, so Hyde Park has the greatest number of high income earners. This could possibly explain the trend of regular top-up shopping as opposed to bulk shopping. To understand why there's little bulk shopping done in Florida is something which I haven't really been able to understand, but interesting slide. Moving over to Radio 702, so we've really zoomed out to the whole of Johannesburg here. So as a marketer or media planner, ensuring ROI media spend is really, really critically important. GeoMAPS will allow you to layer media penetration by media type, publication, station, channel, and get an accurate view of brand or category penetration versus media usage down to a suburb level, resulting in targeted media campaigns and maximize ROI. So this slide is currently only showing 702, green dots is they do listen to 702, and the red dots are no, they don't listen to 702. So this is a great slide for the radio station owner to understand what the listenership penetration is per suburb. But with the MAPS data, you can obviously start overlaying specific brands. So if you are a coffee brand or a funeral brand, for instance, or insurer or bank, whatever the case may be, you could look at which radio stations have the greatest penetration per area and then really target your media campaign accordingly. So how do we access GeoMAPS? There are essentially three ways in which GeoMAPS can be accessed. It's very important to understand that GeoMAPS can only be accessed by MAPS subscribers. So you would have to subscribe to the MAPS data first and then engage with Africascope to access the more granular data, which we call GeoMAPS. So if you are a subscriber to MAPS and you have a GIS system in place in your organization, you simply need to purchase the model and then integrate GeoMAPS into your current GIS mapping software. The second alternative is you are a MAPS subscriber, but you don't have GIS, or you're not a GIS client, you don't have any type of GIS capability in your organization currently. So first step would be to purchase the GeoMAPS model. And then you would need to subscribe to our GIS mapping solution. There are a number of options from open source to commercial GIS solutions. I did see that some of our GIS partners are on this call, so Africascope is happy to do a free needs analysis and obviously point in the right direction of the right platform from a GIS perspective. The last alternative is you're not a MAPS subscriber yet and you also don't have a GIS system. So as I mentioned, GeoMAPS is only available to MAPS subscribers. So you would need to contact Marie from MAPS to subscribe, and we could then work together from there accessing GeoMAPS. So that is the end of my presentation. So thank you very much for your attention and for spending the time with us this morning. This is going to be the first of a couple of presentations that we're going to be putting together as more data becomes available. We will be putting together presentations which will be industry specific. So we will probably have finance, insurance type of webinar. We'll then move to retail. We haven't worked out the schedule yet, but we'll be waiting to see what the data looks like. And we will certainly be inviting everyone to those webinars. So thank you very much.
Okay, so one of the questions coming from Steve Johnson from Frontline is, from this data, can one work out the size of the market, size of the prize and opportunity for various industries?
Yes, you would be able to do market sizing, but that's obviously down the line when the MAPS data is at full potential from a sampling perspective. But very definitely you would be able to do market sizing. Yeah.
Maybe let me just add to that. This is a nationally representative sample, and the nationally representative sample is being weighted up to demographic estimates in 2020 of the target population. So because you're utilizing information which is current and is nationally representative and is to the full universe, which is that of the country, the data at the reporting level would be able to be sized both from a point of view of the survey itself. But when you are doing modeling and mapping of this information, we will also be able to report this information with statistical precision at even a fairly local level. So you will be able to get fairly good understanding of the distribution of the population in relation to different variables in the data set, in relation to different industries as well, utilizing the GeoMAPS product. One of the important things that we would want to do in representing the demographics from a survey of this nature in circle point thematics is to confirm a number of different things. First of all, you are able to overlay this information in a geospatial format and get a perspective as whether the results coming back from the survey are representative of the reality on the ground. So we can very quickly look at it in terms of race, age, or gender and say, in our historic understanding of this particular area, is this reflective of that particular area? And by doing this sort of analytics, we've been able to show that the quality of the map survey in terms of its national representation is effective. What is also important is to be able to see whether the sample realization has been accomplished. And this is often a major problem that we face in the market research industry in South Africa and other countries, is the ability of the fieldwork company to be able to collect this information with sufficient numbers in order for the representativity to be there. And by the utilization of the circle point thematic maps, we are able to confirm that the realization of the sample during this particular wave has been accomplished. So the circle point thematics really talks to this aspect of how is the quality of the survey, is it representative, and is the survey being realized? And the answer to that in all of those particular points at the end of wave one is yes, it is. And just one other point that I would like to make is that the circle point thematics is a qualitative technique which one can utilize to rapidly analyze the information from a number of different perspectives. But at the end of the day, for much more intricate decision making by marketers and advertisers in South Africa, one would look at the utilization of the small area estimation data down to a neighborhood level. And as Julianne has pointed out, what would happen is that you have to be a subscriber to MAPS in order for you to be able to get access to the GeoMAPS product. What would happen is that if you subscribe to the GeoMAPS product, we would then work with that particular company to do a selection of variables from the MAP survey, and we would then implement the modeling and mapping of that information using machine learning and neural network methods, and that information would then become available to the company. It could either become available in a commercial GIS package, or it could be made available in another format, a web mapping format as an example, for companies to be able to do the analysis that they require. I think one of the most important geospatial products to come out of South Africa in recent years, and probably a world first, And if you are interested in this, please contact us and we can talk further.
Steve Johnson asked whether there were questions that can be added to the map survey. Steve, please contact me and I'll take you through the process.
Yeah, at the moment, there are no plans of expanding it into Africa, just purely based on available funding. But there are other data sets available from Africa that we could look at possibly integrating with the help of Africa's Cup and with their expertise, but not expanding maps into Africa in the short term. I think maybe longer term, if we reach that critical mass of subscribers and we have the sufficient funding, we can certainly look at expanding that across the rest of the continent. This presentation was based, as you've mentioned, on the first quarter's worth of data collection fieldwork period. We've also completed the second quarter, which is the period that ended in December. So we've now done the full fieldwork period of July to December 2020. We're in the validating that data, doing all the integrations and weighting up the data. It will then go into a scrutiny process. And we hope if all goes according to plan and it all comes together nicely, that we will release the full 6-month data set around the middle of March this year. And then from there on, there will be new releases every quarter, adding another quarter every quarter as we go on. So yeah, we're very excited about that. And as Craig has said, this product will just continue growing as the data set grows. Thank you.
Is that we will start to engage with subscribers. The survey is only completed, as Johannes pointed out, Q1. They've finished Q1 and 2. Q2 data is being processed at this moment in time. From a statistical point of view, once we have got Q1 and Q2 done, or wave 1 of the survey done, we actually then have sufficient data to start looking at it from a point of view of doing small area estimation on the data set to be able to map it down to the neighborhood level. So we will start to engage with customers now and to find out their interest in terms of accessing the GeoMAPS product. And we will now start to look with our data scientists in looking at the method that we're going to be utilizing, which particular method from a machine learning and neural network method we are going to apply in order to get it down to the local level. Just to also say that once the person has given some indication of the interest in GeoMAPS, it normally takes us between 2 to 3 weeks to be able to extract the variables of interest, be able to prepare that data set for the neural networks, and then to do the networks, and will then made available in whichever format they are interested in.